if you had an iPod. You can listen whenever the hell you want. I mean, if you want to listen to Juvie, you want to listen to Mystical, if you want to listen to Beethoven. What it do, my beautiful, beautiful people, my excellent people, my wonderful people, my everybody, of course, that's just sitting there waiting on me to drop the next episode. We definitely do appreciate your patience. And best believe you are tuned into the best podcast on earth, you heard me? The ShiftMakers podcast. I am your host, L, the designer. This is gonna be a little solo piece I'ma serve y'all with today, you heard me? And this is episode 22 of the ShiftMakers podcast. And let me just go ahead on and drop that out right quick. And let me tell you, I got something very special for everybody today. Something very, 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 very special for us today. We're going to be talking about the big leagues, you heard me? We're going to be talking about, not the big leagues in sports, of course, not the big leagues, in life as far as women, you heard me? But we're going to actually be talking about the big leagues in business. And by that, I'm more so talking about Apple. This is going to be the first time we actually dedicate a whole episode to, one business in particular, but I think it's very appropriate this time around. And I think I have a very interesting topic for y'all regarding Apple. We're really going to be jumping into just this one thing. Are we living in the iLife? So by iLife, of course, I'm not just referring to all of the Apple products that start with I, you know, I'm trying to go a little bit more in depth with that in particular. I want to be talking about just how we relate to these products and more so what these products kind of have been doing to us and our personalities and how we interact with everybody that we know since they kind of came out over the last, I'll say, 20 years now. It's been about a good 2 decades. So that should give us a nice little sample size. Yeah, I would think so. So without further ado, we're actually going to be jumping into our first reading of the day, you heard me? And it's actually going to be coming from bbcnews.com. And it's just going to be giving us a brief little history on a couple Apple products. And I guess you could say Apple software. It's called the iPod and iTunes. Now, I know we definitely do got maybe some young people that's listening in the audience. And I know we got some older people. Shit, you're probably older than me. But what I say is this. Regardless of your age, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you probably have some type of memory of iTunes or maybe some type of memory of an iPod. And I mean, I know I definitely do. Like, first time I probably saw an iPod was when it was a big ass brick. Like, it was a big white square brick. And this had to be like maybe 2006. Maybe like, 2006. So this was before... Well, no, it probably was before then, probably like 2003, 2005 or something. But all I'm saying is this was before the iPod Touch came out. So this was like when it was like all white and then you got to, you know, scroll with the little touch thing by moving your hand across the little circle thing to turn up the volume and all that. So my cousin, she had one and she let me use it. Shout out Robin for like a good 30 minutes. So I went outside on the patio. I was using her iPod. I was trying to listen. I think she had like a little T.I. song I was trying to listen to at the time. It probably was like off his first album or something like that. But all I'm saying is I was trying to listen to a T.I. song and I was trying to turn it up using a little volume thing. And I think I broke that motherfucker. So I didn't break the screen or nothing. I think I just broke like the function of just using the volume and using like the little touch sensitive keypad thing that they had. And to make a long story short, I returned that iPod back without saying anything because I knew we was going to be leaving in about 15 minutes. So I'm sure my cousin probably still never heard of that story and still probably never heard of why her iPod's volume back then was broke. But if you are listening, Robin, of course, now you know. So with all of that being said, that's just my little brief history and introduction to Apple's iPod. And of course, like I mentioned, we're going to be jumping into the reading of the history of iPod and of course iTunes. So it goes like this. It wasn't the first on the market, but industry experts considered it the most user-friendly and sales soared. Remember that, user-friendly. Digital music, and of course they're talking about iTunes, digital music had until then existed in a culture in which pirate sites loomed large and illegal downloading was rife. So of course they're talking about the LimeWires, you heard me, the pilots, I think it was called. If y'all already know how it was back in the MP3 days. Everybody had LimeWire, everybody had Pilot on their computers. If you know, you know. I mean, some people was trapping off of Napster, but I mean, you ain't have to go that hard. You ain't have to really pay for nothing when you could get it out the, you know what I'm saying? So basically, iTunes really kind of came around that time regarding, of course, digital music, the advent of digital music. And like they said, it wasn't the first, but Apple already kind of had a market itself. So it probably had the most financial backing regarding all of this digital music within the industry. So, you know, like I mentioned, Napster and all of that. So the file sharing platform Napster launched 20 years ago. It had opened up an enormous, if illegal, network through which people could freely share music. And, you know, of course, after labels heard about that, they wasn't playing that shit because, I mean, they need their bread so they could continue to slave artists. See the last episode. And, of course, there was no longer any need to surreptitiously record off the radio onto a cassette. Now, millions of tech-savvy lovers had access to vast libraries of tracks straightforward from each other's hard drives. So, of course, that's how the sharing music aspect of this worked. They were sharing music from each other's hard drives. I'm talking about just tech, like they said, tech-savvy music lovers. So the average music consumer at the time, it could be maybe somebody who 13. It could be somebody, 29. Or it could be somebody 54. Listening to some fucking Kiss or something. I don't know. Or it could be, like I said, somebody young who at the time was probably listening to Wayne or the Hot Boys. So, you know, this is how music was being shared before music streaming. We had these type of platforms leveraging that type of sharing ability. And it finishes, but Napster was quickly sued by both music bodies and artists, including people like Metallica and Dr. Dre, who, of course, was suffering considerable revenue losses. So at that time, of course, when these music sharing platforms was coming out, you had a lot of these different lawsuits also coming towards these music platforms who was able to share music freely, like the Napsters, the LimeWires, the Pilots, of course. And then ding, 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 you got iTunes in the market. iTunes, of course, so big because unlike all of these other platforms I'm talking about, iTunes charged maybe 99 cents for a song or $12.99 for an album or $15.99 for a deluxe. So that, of course, was that gave the labels the ability to get their financial backing and their financial investment back. So, of course, they didn't sue the shit out of iTunes like they did with these other music sharing platforms. So with all of that being said, that of course gave Apple the ability to continue to grow in the music sharing industry. Solely because of course they basically didn't really give people the ability to share music for free. So by them doing that, it wasn't really a sharing type of mechanism. It was more so, hey, you pay for this and you download it digitally for you and you alone. And that, of course, gave the labels back the revenue they were putting into these artists. So that definitely made them very happy.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, when you got labels, of course, happy, they're able, by they, of course, I'm talking about iTunes, they're able to continue to operate. So they're now growing in this sector of music, digital music, And then we look at the iPod kind of dropping around the same time, allowing people to put this digital music no longer on their computers, but also on a portable device. Now, just like, of course, when, say iTunes dropped, they wasn't the first people in the market. iTunes, of course, was falling behind people like Napster. But what they did do with the iPod was they made everything all usable, user-friendly. Again, that word user-friendly under one umbrella. So, of course, with the iPod, it ties directly back into iTunes. So now anybody that already had iTunes on like I said, on their computer, all of these songs already on their computer, they're now able to carry it right over seamlessly to this device. Again, looking better than any other MP3 player that you saw, just aesthetically wise, just how it looks, of course. It looks design wise, just on a whole nother level compared to these other MP3 players. And at the time, of course, you're dealing with people who still had Walkmans. I'm talking about the little cassette players. And of course, you got people who got CD players. I had a CD player at the time. And I mean, just these iPods, it just was a whole new game. Like, if you really remember when like the first time you saw iPod, you was like, shit, what the fuck is this? Like, bruh, like all of these songs, music, volume, loud as shit. And I mean, you really you could rock out with it for hours on hours without even really noticing. And that was really how the iPod kind of, I would say, took us in the music industry. And of course, in connection with iTunes, it just changed the music industry, like literally changed it. And I want to get into, of course, how, say, the iPod was marketed to us. So just an ad that I'm looking at right now, and I might put it in the show notes if I'm able to, of course. It says, say hello to the iPod. 1,000 songs in your pocket. And, of course, it's just a picture of the first iPod with the headphones behind it. So let me tell you a little bit something about this ad. Let me break down this ad actually a little bit, since, of course, I'm in marketing. I might as well break this down a little bit. Regarding, of course, and there's nothing wrong with this ad, don't get me wrong. It's probably one of the most effective advertising campaigns regarding music and how it's consumed ever. And I mean, it just kind of shows you why when you think of how Apple is connecting to the user and its audience. So consciously, anytime Apple was to drop an ad, especially regarding this iPod that they were first launching, they knew in every single advert to put text that connected to the user. It made the user feel like it was welcomed. It made the user feel like they needed this product. It made the user feel like they were being absolutely convenienced by this product. And it just made life simpler. You know, if you're able to make life simpler with your product, especially even if your product don't make life simple, if you're able to market it like it is, if you're able to market it to the consumer like it is, then I mean, one of the easiest ways to sell. So let me tell y'all something. When someone says 1,000 songs in your pocket, when you walking around with a CD player with 12 songs on a CD that you got to buy for $12.99, and you actually got to walk into a store like Walmart or Radio Shack or whatever, you know, buku people, places were selling CDs, Best Buy, all of that shit. When you had to go and do that to get your music compared to, hey, bro, I could just download this shit at my crib. I could just put this on my music device at my crib. What I'm doing, you see what I'm saying? Convenience. Hey, boom, got that. 1,000 songs, quantity, making life not just making life simpler, but making life more desirable. Because now you have the quantity to go about the business of people don't even have 1,000 songs at the time, likely, that they ever listen. Well, I won't say that they ever listen to, but you know, that they have in their rotation. But at the time, just having that number, it was appealing to people. Most people will buy that shit at the time and only put like 150, 200 songs on it. But to have that cap of 1,000 at that time was crazy. Again, let me put y'all in a mindset. CDs, 12 songs on the CD, 15 songs on the CD. Cassette was the same thing. And radio, boy, don't even get me started. Man, you got people at radio playing the same 4 songs all goddamn day, dog. Nigga, I'm not trying to hear as you drop it like it's hot 40 times after 11 a.m. Bro, I'm not trying to hear that shit at 8 a.m. But guess what you could do at 8 a.m. if you had an iPod? You can listen whenever the hell you want. I mean, if you want to listen to Juvie, you want to listen to Mystical, if you want to listen to Beethoven, or if you want to listen to all 3 in a playlist, you could really get it how you want it. So, you know, it was definitely, like I said, convenient. And I mean, very desirable just regarding what the user wanted. So, again, just to put us all into perspective of how dominant Apple was kind of becoming, because I would give y'all the whole history of Steve Jobs and, of course, Steve Wozniak or whatever his name is, the other dude, and how Apple started in the 80s and then Steve Jobs left and then he came back and all of this shit and how they did computers and all of that and then the iMac, and I could give you all of that. But everybody already know all of that shit for the most part. So what I'm deciding to do with this episode again is to explore Apple's power and true power over the last 20 years and how these iProducts really kind of took over the game of shit, technology, electronics, everything kind of that we use. And like, you can't tell me most people throughout their life, I haven't came across one person throughout their life who could look me in the face and tell me I haven't had one iProduct. And that shit crazy. I'm talking about, of course, if you know, like an adult or something. But yeah, bringing it all back, I got a question for y'all. Before the iTunes, of course, was Apple already kind of a force after changing how, say, we consume music with iTunes and, you know, the iPod? Like, was they already like a major force to really influence us and how we think and shit? I'm talking, you know, like after 2000, before 2007, when the iPhone came out, that period of time. Like, as they were growing, how big of a force were they to actually influence us and how we think? Because they kind of already had this dream, if you think about it with iTunes, as far as just music streaming now, they had this dream years ago. So I wanted to know how far in depth did this plan that they had, how soon ago, well, how far back they already kind of have, say, the iPhone already applied it. And then the knowledge that it was going to dominate like it did, because they had to have the knowledge. The Steve Jobs in his little keynote speak, the first little speech, delivering, of course, the iPhone back in 2006, 2007, whenever that was, displaying it and telling people like that shit was crazy, the stuff he was saying. He was like, this shit gonna change y'all life. He was like, this shit gonna change the way we do things. This shit gonna, you know, this, that, and the third. Ain't lied. He ain't lied.
That's true.
Definitely ain't lied. So, you know, it really kind of got me thinking, just regarding, of course, Apple and how they've been maneuvering since then. When did the iProducts jump to another level? And of course, to help us with that, we're going to be looking at an article. You're going to be tagged in the show notes, of course, coming from Investopedia. By the way, if you're an investor, pretty solid website to get you some stock news and different things like that. And like I mentioned, they're going to be telling us and giving us a little bit more information regarding when did the iProducts jump to another level. So they tell us, being the first big mover into many of these markets, Apple built the stadium and set the rules for the game. When you pay for books, movies, apps, or music on an Apple device, Apple gets a cut. And then that, my friends, is when they became and when they got to another level. And you know, that actually came from, of course, the iPhone, the Apple Store, really the Apple Store, because if you think about it, the Apple Store was already on people's computers, I believe, before the iPhone. If not, it came out around the same time with apps and all these different type of things. And that was a real game changer for Apple, along with the iPhone. It may have came out simultaneously, if my history is accurate, the Apple Store, like they just mentioned, gave Apple a cut on any time people wanted to pay for a little book or whatever, or anytime somebody wanted to rent or buy a movie, or anytime somebody, of course, wanted to buy an app, or if anytime somebody wanted to go to iTunes and buy some music, buy an album, buy whatever it may be. So that put Apple financially on a whole different level with these people that's just dabbling in music. All these people like Nokia, BlackBerry, and nigga about to say Blueberry. Fuck all these, all these other. I didn't damn near forgot all of these people who were selling phones. Like, bro, you had the Razr, you had Motorola, people. Samsung was dropping phones and shit. Like, bro, it was stuff like this when Apple was able to get this much money financially from, of course, the App Store and the first generation of their iPhones. It was able to wipe out all that shit. And I mean, Android, don't get me wrong. I think they had, like smartphones around the same time. Actually, I believe, just like, of course, with iTunes, just like, of course, with the iPod, the iPhone wasn't even the first smartphone. Like, I remember my sister had like a Windows phone, like a little touchscreen phone, and it was able to do this, that, and the third, all this crazy shit. And she broke it like in the first 2 days of having it. And like, they had, what they call them damn things? Like it was like a little touchscreen thing. Start with a P or some shit, I think. And people was using it as like schedulers and stuff. And it was like, you had like a big ass, like keypad with the screen and stuff. Like, basically all I'm saying is, it was something I straight forgot. But basically all I'm saying is that Apple really arrived to the game, not late, but right on time. Because of course, when they did that, when they came to the game with the iPhone, they took over the industry within 3 years, bro. Within 3 years, it was theirs. And then, 15 years now? 15 years later, it's still theirs. So, just to finish things off, of course, this business doesn't generate as much revenue as selling an iPhone or an iPad, but the markup is much, much, much more generous. So, of course, they're referring to the Apple Store. It ain't even though it gave them a whole lot of revenue, a whole lot of financial backing, a whole lot of, I guess you could say, equity to invest in these newer technological developments like the iPhone and the iPod Touch. When they finally dropped the iPhone, iPod Touch, iPad, the money that was coming in because of how little it was to make these devices cost-wise and how much they was charging for these devices, boy, night and day compared to the Apple Store. Night and day. Wow! And I mean, and by the Apple Store, I'm talking about the App Store, or however you want to call that shit. So, of course, as Apple was developing these newer products like the iPhone, like the iPod Touch, and it was getting all of this new revenue in, Steve Jobs continued. And by, Steve Jobs around this time, he was getting in his later years. Steve Jobs continued to have a main focus on one main thing. And I said it early in the episode. He had a focus on being user-friendly. User-friendly. And that right there sparked the name of the first iProduct. Of course, I'm referring to iTunes. User-friendly because it's considering the user, it's considering the audience. It keeps the audience as the first thing in mind. Makes it personal. So that, of course, is where the names iPod, iPad, iPhone, iMac, all of this bullshit. I don't want to say bullshit because, of course, it changed the world. But all of that shit, the naming structure, that's where it kind of came from. That's where the branding of this kind of came from, was that personal level that Steve Jobs wanted to continue to connect with us. And I don't know if it was just that. I'm sure he probably had other ideas in mind. I don't know specifically. But I, of course, do have an idea, just thinking about our audience, and of course about how we always keep our audience in mind, and of course how our audience keeps us in mind, you dig? And of course, I'm just talking about how our audience just always considers us and the value that we give, and of course the value that y'all are going to give back. So with all of that being said, just take some time, put a little pause. Well, actually, you don't have to pause it. You can actually just take some time and just open up the show notes. Open up the episode notes, whatever it's called in your podcast app. Hit that link tree, you dig? And consider leaving some value back. I mean, we got a CashApp. I mean, we got a Venmo. I mean, of course, we got that PayPal link. So it could be big, it could be small. We definitely do appreciate each and everything you're giving back. We trying to upgrade our studio. We trying to upgrade this whole recording situation. So each and everything you give back, that definitely does a very, very big impact regarding that. So take some time, of course, leave a review, 5-star review, if you will. Of course, subscribe to us on any podcast platform you're listening to. Subscribe to us on that YouTube. Definitely do turn on notifications. Definitely do share this with anybody that you listening to. Of course, if you got value from it, why you don't think your partner gonna get value from it also? And we definitely do appreciate the value that you're giving us, as of course you're giving value back. And with all of that being said, back to the show. So, as I was saying, user-friendly, considering how the user interacts with the product, that really did do a very big thing for Apple and Steve Jobs, and of course, even the marketing that they pushed towards their products. And then one day, this was after Steve Jobs passed, of course, Tim Cook at the time, well, still is the CEO. He was just sitting back with his boys, of course, on the board or whatever it may be. And he was thinking, user-friendly, just continuing that thing that Steve Jobs, of course, had as the main focal point of just the brand itself. User-friendly. How can we make music more user-friendly? And then guess what Tim Cook and everybody at that board did? They took a good look at Spotify. They took a good look at Pandora. They took a good look at SoundCloud. I don't know if Tidal was out by then, but they took a good look at what I'm naming is all of these music streaming platforms. And basically they said, oh shit, hey bro, we could do that. We could dabble into that, you hear me? I mean, I don't see why not. So what they did was, they went and started this thing called Apple Music. Now, I believe they actually purchased Beats Music, which was already kind of started and already kind of had an audience, a platform. I know that because I actually had a subscription to Beats Music and it transferred right to Apple Music one day. I just woke up and that shit was Apple Music. So, all I'm saying is, if you haven't noticed now, it's kind of a continual theme that Apple is doing with each and every innovation that they bring. They're looking at an industry that's already kind of there, that already kind of has a small little foot in the door, and they bust that motherfucker right down. i.e. iTunes with Napster. i.e. the iPod with MP3 players and CD players. i.e. the iPhone with all of this smartphone new technology that was coming out at the time. And now Apple Music with its streaming service. Because of course they're thinking, again, user-friendly. They were considering, okay, iTunes, no one is really buying music now anymore. People are still bootlegging shit, even though there was lawsuits against LimeWire, Pilot, Napster. They still bootlegging that shit. Man, new software helping people bootleg that shit straight from YouTube, man, straight off of YouTube. Give me that. Let me get that out you. And I mean, when you got that level of bootlegging still going on, that's when these streaming services was really at the labels mercy. Well, the labels were at the streaming services mercy, because for the most part they needed them. Everything was going digital thanks to Apple and iTunes, and you got people putting music on SoundCloud, like I mentioned, for free, and YouTube for free. So that Spotify subscription, that's of course, giving some of it to the labels, like we mentioned in our previous episode. Say, for instance, Atlantic is actually coming in very handy to the label. So they're going to actually invest more in the Spotify's of the world. They're going to invest more in Tidal. They're going to invest more in Pandora because, of course, they're getting a little back cut from that subscription that the user have. And, of course, Apple Music, too. So just to tie it all back into user-friendly, this was a little bit more user-friendly even in Apple Music because now you're giving the user the ability to stream any song they want to, not for free, but for a monthly price. That gives Apple the ability to now get more users on their platform because now you have more people willing to say who wasn't willing to buy a song off of iTunes and who was getting that shit off of YouTube. They're now like, man, for $9.99, $4.99, if I'm able to get 20 million, 400 million songs, shit, I'll spend it. I'll drop it. So you got those people now coming in. And then two, you already got your previous audience, like I said, with Beast Music. And then you got your iTunes audience coming in because people from iTunes, they're like, why would I keep on spending 99 cents on the song when I can get all of this shit for $4.99, $9.99 a month? So with all of that being said, Apple was able to just expand their audience so much with this Apple Music shit. Need subscriptions, of course. And now they competing with the people who was there before them. Spotify, Pandora, SoundCloud. Actually, they have more of an audience than a few of those people I named. Probably the only one who don't have a bigger, probably the only one who do have a bigger audience is Spotify. So I'll say this. Streaming was already kind of there for shit, damn near 5-6 years before Apple Music had its own thing, had its own streaming service. Before Apple, I'll say, had its own streaming service. But it wasn't until Apple Music jumped in the game when streaming took over. So when Apple Music jumped in the game, bro, again, you had people who have iPhones now able to stream music, download music instantly, any song, any album, make playlists, listen to other people's playlists, share music, basically, like we was talking about with the Napster side of things. So all of them ideas that was coming down from people who came before iTunes, like Napster and Lime, all that type of shit, Apple put into Apple Music. And that, my friends, is why music streaming went to a whole nother level just a couple years after Apple Music became a thing. And it wasn't actually until coming again from BBC.com, BBCnews.com, it wasn't until the year 2017 that it was a bumper year, actually, for music streaming revenue, with global streaming generating $7.1 billion. $7.1 billion. Wow! For the music industry. More than CD and vinyl sales. Dog, let me tell you, that shit ain't easy. Because CD's been dominating for years. Vinyl's been dominating for damn near a century. So the fact that these streaming services was able to do that and really only like 2-3 years after Apple Music kind of took over, dog, that's some shit that's just kind of unheard of.
That's true. And
honestly, it probably ain't gonna never happen again, just regarding, of course, the music industry, unless Apple willing to probably just take somebody else's ideas and kind of exploit them shits and expand upon it just to build their business. You know what I'm saying? So my next question is going to be this. Now that we know streaming services then took over, and of course, Apple then changed how we listen to music, not just once, but twice, I want to ask y'all, what is the impact of, say, all of these streaming services like streaming music? Say streaming movies. We got the Disney Pluses now, you hear me? We got, of course, the Paramounts. We got, of course, the Peacocks. I mean, we got shit. HBO Maxes. I'm on HBO Max, you hear me? HBO Max ain't no joke, so if y'all ain't fucking with it, hey. Oh, they also got the Netflix. We also got, bro, top to bottom, Hulu, Amazon Prime, about 5 more that I ain't even named or thought of yet. So all of these different movie, TV show services. Shit, you now even got concerts. Concerts being streamed, bro. Like Travis Scott being streamed on Fortnite and shit. And fucking Busta Rhymes being streamed on the Oculus and shit. I don't even know if it was Busta Rhymes, just threw his name out there. But yeah, like you just got mad, just fucking concerts coming out of nowhere now being streamed. So again, how has this impacted us? Like just as a society, do y'all feel like it's made us more connected? Because personally, I don't know. I feel like with the advent of all of these different type of technologies, it's really grown us apart. And I mean, then you got the pandemic and you got the lockdowns and then you got the mandates and then you got a whole lot of other shit that's just keeping people even more apart than they already was. So again, as a society, we really do have to consider, we really do have to wonder, we really do have to ask ourselves, is all of this new technology, is all of these new iProducts, are all of these just smart robots, I guess you could call them, are they really for the better for us as, you know, just humans and how we interact with each other? I truly do believe we are becoming more immersed in self as time goes on. And that brings me back to Steve Jobs, going along with the theme of the show. Steve Jobs, his initial, not only just marketing direction, but brand direction of being user friendly. With user friendly, keeping that in mind, always trying to appease the user and how they interact and how they do certain things, that can make them, I feel, more selfish, weirdly enough. The reason why is because if a person just feels more welcomed by a product, which is what user-friendly basically means, if a person feels more welcomed by a product than they are to an actual person, then you got what we got in 2022. Basically, you got people who don't want to deal with people who don't want to talk with people unless they on Instagram, unless they on FaceTime. And of course, I ain't gonna act oblivious. I already know the pandemic got a little bit something to do with that, but I do believe the iPhone, of course, has something to do with that too. So it brings us really to kind of our last little set of questions that I got for everybody. Just regarding Apple and, of course, the successful products and software that have a direct correlation on us as a people, do y'all feel like we becoming more selfish? And as I'm asking y'all these questions, I do want you to, of course, ask yourself, ask your mama, ask your people who older than you, ask your dad, ask anybody who older, and then turn around and ask anybody that's younger. Because from generation to generation, age to age, person to person you ask, I almost 100% guarantee you their answers is going to be different. And the reason is I truly do believe we, as say a younger generation, if you're talking, say somebody around my age in their early 20s, early to mid 20s, then I feel like you maybe don't appreciate the life before all of this technology kind of took over. The reason why I say that is if we was to, you know, have a shortage of Wi-Fi or some shit, and this chip shortage keep happening, and basically, well, no new iPhones could be made for the next 10 years, and Wi-Fi is down for the next 2 years. Ask yourself this: would you survive? Would you live? Would you panic? Would you scream? Would you pull out all your hair? Would you shave all your hair? Would you grow your hair like The Weeknd? I just want to know what you would like. What would we do? Would we really make it? You know what I'm saying? Like, I personally really don't even know, because shit, when the power go out, people be crying about not having power, or not having electronics, or not having the internet and shit. So, you know, it really does kind of make me think, how would those answers be from generation to generation? And I mean, I'm even sure older people didn't got used to this new technology, so they probably couldn't even last either. So that makes me think, as parents, because I'm sure y'all plan on maybe having kids one day, my beautiful audience, my great audience, my audience that's going to build and multiply, you hear me? Just like I plan on having kids with my beautiful wife one day. So when we do have kids, us as parents, knowing what we know about all of this new technology, knowing what we know about how it affects us, knowing what we know, of course, if you're around my age and you was able to kind of little bit see how life was before all of this shit took over, knowing what we know about all of these effects of, say, this smart technology, will we do something different as parents, knowing what it brings? Will we do something different? And with all that being said, I'm going to leave y'all with this. Again, another reading, and it's going to be coming from theconversation.com. And I'm going to leave it like this. Small little excerpt. Smartphones are a tool. And like most tools, they could be used in positive ways or negative ones. In moderation, smartphones are a convenient, even crucial technology. Yet, a different picture has also emerged over the past decade. Interacting with people face to face usually makes us happy. Electronic communication often doesn't. And with all of that being said, of course, we definitely do appreciate you listening to us on whatever electronic you using. Of course, taking us some time out, opening up that podcast app, opening up YouTube, using your iPhone like we was just talking about throughout this entire episode, or whatever device you listening to us on. Of course, we definitely do appreciate the value that you're going to give back. We definitely do appreciate you leaving them reviews. We definitely do appreciate you sharing. We definitely do appreciate you commenting, engaging with us, hitting us up. Of course, you can do that at theshiftmakers, at colorcommand.net. Again, that is theshiftmakers at colorcommand.net. Definitely don't be afraid to hit us up. Let us know how you feeling about the show. Letting us know what you can improve if you got any ideas regarding the topic. And again, leaving some value, you hear me? Hitting up that CashApp, hitting up that PayPal, or hitting up that Venmo. Leaving whatever you feel you got from the show regarding value. And I mean, just tuning in again. I'm your host, L the Designer. Checking in live from Color Command Creative Studio out here in Atlanta, Georgia. Episode 22 of the ShiftMakers Podcast.